caucus point. You're not supposed to have them all in a truck going somewhere to be counted.
And look where that came from. That came from what, Ames, which is the center, which is also the place of Iowa State, a big university with lots of young people, and Ron Paul gets about, what, 50% of the young vote?
Or more,
I mean, how can you, I mean, he was, listen to his speech, and I like to be objective. One person on my site, because I said I wasn't stumping for Ron Paul, and he says, I don't know, what does he need, a halo over his head? Well, listen, I want to be objective. If somebody's getting a bad shake, if somebody's getting the short end of the stick, I want to be objective enough to say, hey, I'm not one of his supporters, and I don't support any candidate or any party. I'm just trying to be objective, and he's getting a bad shake. I mean, the evidence shows he's getting a bad shake, and it at least shows they should do an investigation on what happened in Iowa. I mean, they got a guy in a truck. They don't have telephones. They don't have fax machines. They don't have computers.
Well, they're supposed to call it in. They're supposed to look. It's amazing. Stay there. We got to come back and talk more about this, and we'll probably play that clip one more time. I think the guys gave it to us in a really high res, and then our computers are run on a gerbil on a wheel, so it was breaking up a bit. But we're going to try to come back and play that clip clean because it is so amazing. But here's the news articles breaking it down. Our guest is Greg Hunter. Your calls are coming up, too. We're going to look more at Iran and some of this crazy police state news straight ahead with our guests. We'll be right back. Our computer in there can't play files that are as big as our nightly news computers can. That's why that one was stuttering. And so coming up in the next segment, we're going to shrink that file down and be able to play that clean without a few stutters. And because it was for the nightly news, we have the little joke in the clip where Karl Rove moves the horse of Ron Paul back. And we have a clip from the Kentucky Derby where they say, and out of nowhere. And it shows Santorum just appear there at the front of the pack. But we also have that clip raw. We're going to post an article at Infowars.com. But an amazing clip. Why would Karl Rove publicly talk about how there was a gentleman's agreement? And how did he know this was going on before anybody else did? And why would he talk about it? I mean, is it a case of hiding it in plain view? I mean, this is a guy well known for manipulating elections.
You're talking to me?
Yes, sir.
Well, I don't know. Listen, maybe he was feeling his oats. Maybe he thought he was saying enough to where he was covered. I think he said enough to cast doubt, to cast real doubt. Now, did they manipulate the votes? We don't have actual evidence. We don't have an actual person who was in the room that said, yeah, they miscounted the votes. But boy, all the evidence around supporting that Ron Paul was winning, even on the election night from the the caucus goers, the polls go inside. I heard one of the reporters say, well, they go in and they say they're going to vote for one person, but they can always change their mind. Well, then thousands of people must have changed their mind, because he was very early on. He was up by 43%, and Romney wasn't even. I don't even think he was in third place. Very early on, from the very first time they started, announcing, who was in what place and who was in the lead. And I don't know, but I know one thing. I wish somebody in the mainstream media would just sit down with Karl Rove or Ed Rollins and, all these, Mike Murphy, and say, okay, tell us why you don't like Ron Paul, because you have absolutely nothing good to say about him other than that he's got a lot of young people you'd like to get.
Yeah. And that's it. Either they ignore him, or when they are forced to cover him, they twist things and attack him, showing the power structure is scared. And that's the question you've been asking. Why are they so scared of him? I want to go to that. But here is the clip of Karl Rove. And again, the Tribune newspaper reported on this, the Washington Examiner. One long caucus, one delayed official add up to late results from Story County. And there at Ames, with that big university, oops, they had to put all those different precincts in a truck. It disappears, and Karl Rove doesn't know where it is, but they had a gentleman's agreement, and Santorum moved up. I mean, this is incredible. Here it is.
Romney is going to win the Iowa caucuses by 14 votes. How solid is your evidence?
From a pretty good, reliable source. They made the correction in Story County, which moved it from an 18-point margin for Santorum to a 4-vote margin for Santorum. Clinton County, right. They have the one outstanding precinct in the state, and that it will show an 18-vote victory in that precinct for Mitt Romney, which will give him a statewide victory of 14 votes over. And
from out of nowhere, it's Rick Santorum.
So I don't understand. You're saying that they basically have come to an agreement as to what the vote's going to be in Clinton?
The person who's got the official piece of paper is missing. But the Romney and Santorum people who are monitoring it agree on what the number is. They apparently have rounded up the representatives of the camps who have agreed, yes, we were there, we know exactly what the vote total was, and we both agreed to what it was.
All right, and Greg Hunter of USA Watchdog, investigative journalist, joins us. This is a short segment. We're going to break. We're going to come back and cover a bunch of other issues with you. But I mean, continue with your breakdown of this.
Well, two things. Number one, they said, well, he said first Romney and Santorum. Then they rounded up the representatives of the camp, like as if they talked to other people. They didn't, I don't think. That's not what it sounds like to me. That's number one. Number two, as an investigative reporter, I always had to make a decision to protect a source or not protect a source, because you always want to name your sources. And if somebody is talking about, hey, wow, there's this new report that says depleted uranium will cause cancer, and I'll lose my job at the Defense Department, and they'll prosecute me for being a traitor, then I have to protect that source. Okay? And you want to make sure you protect.
But if
sources.
it's somebody in a public election, you want to know about the good old boy meeting. Put the source out there.
What's the source? And listen, Chris Wallace is the son of Mike Wallace, who's done all kinds of investigative reporting, knows better than that. And you say from a pretty good source. Well, what source is that? Why didn't he say what source is that? Who's the source? There's no reason you would protect that source. Who's the source? Oh, just a pretty good source. Really? Who?
No, they were just going to let him have the inside baseball there and hide it in plain view so that we don't know to who go talk to that source as well. They're just hoarding the sources because they don't want us to know.
Who knows if the source is, who knows who the source is?
Well, that's a sign they don't want you to know the source is. Yeah, there's more hanky-panky. Stay there. Let's finish up on the election looking forward. And then more on Iran and phone calls with our guest straight ahead. And of course, then you got the Republican strategist the day before saying the insiders have got it fixed. I mean,
we're on the...
we're going back to our guest here in a moment and then into some other important issues and news. I want to get his take on your calls here today. The toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231. I know we've had callers holding since before he joined us, but... he can certainly talk about pretty much any issue out there. He's a very well-researched gentleman. But if you guys bring up kind of side topics, I won't even really have anything to say because I'm mainly focused on the economy, what's happening in Iran, the unfolding police state, and the rest of it. Every few months, I've always done this in my 17 years on air. I do satirical skits. Global Love Cop, a guy dressed up in a stormtrooper outfit telling you how great the police state is. Or I did a thing with John Corzine, saying I'm not going to tell you where the money went, with a banker top hat dressed up like the Monopoly man. And I've done a new one. It's up at Infowars.com and Prisonplanet.com. We did it on the nightly news last night. Cobra Commander for President. And I'm illustrating in the piece that our government's doing everything that cartoon villains would do. Secret arrest, torture, preemptive war. And so Cobra Commander announces he's going to run for president. And I got the idea seeing the trailer for the new Cobra movie coming out, which is really just a military recruitment film, where Cobra, this international terrorist group, takes over the White House. And so I'm basically speaking from the White House. I see commenters there saying, Alex, where did you get the giant Cobra throne? Folks, that's blue screen. Somebody mailed me 2 Cobra Commander outfits because I'd done a joke about Cobra Commander a few months ago. So I thought, well, I've got these. I see this. I'll do a skit with this. And some people, it's got 852 likes to 48 dislikes. And some people are in there, since it went up last night. And they're saying, Alex, this is a joke. You shouldn't joke around. Really, Rush Limbaugh didn't joke around on his TV show and do satire. Really, Anderson Cooper didn't get a half-naked woman with him on his news show to get ratings. That's not what I'm doing. When something's satire once every 2, 3, 4 months, it's clearly that. And, of course, that's just a talking point to attack us. Most people, I guess 20 to 1, 20 to 1 or so, like it. It's funny, it's goofy, and it's gallows humor. We can't just sit up here and be serious about this all day or we go crazy. Now, we do have a serious video on the NDAA that's got close to 500,000 views that I shot from home right after Obama signed it there on New Year's Eve, so no one would notice. And I have a new one that we also just aired today and posted, titled, "The NDAA is a hoax. You cannot legalize tyranny. Marbury versus Madison. Anything repugnant to the Constitution is null and void. Any law. Could they have laws again saying black people are slaves? No. And if they tried to pass those laws, we would stand against them. They're illegitimate. In fact, let's shift gears into the NDAA, because I know you've written about this over at your USA Watchdog news site. When you look at this, when you see this kind of stuff happening, why do you think, same question, why are they cheating Ron Paul, clearly, in the coverage and how much time he gets in debates, all sorts of evidence of fraud in Iowa? Why are they doing that to Ron Paul? But also, why are they saying they want to censor the internet now and validating our position and proving we were right? Why are they getting so naked about their tyranny, so brazen, so hubris-filled? Or is it an attempt to flee forward, and is it desperation? Why are they saying, we'll secretly arrest citizens, we'll have worldwide combat, including in America, we'll end posse comitatus? Why is that happening, Greg Hunter?
Well, I'll answer your question with a question. What are they getting ready for? What are they doing checkpoints in Florida? I think they're practicing. What are they doing with the FEMA camps? I think they're going to need camps because I think we're headed for an economic collapse. And I'm not the only one that said that. There's a guy by the name of Ray Dalio who runs Bridgewater Associates or Capital. I can't remember. It's a big hedge for Bridgewater. It's an $80 to $100 billion hedge fund. His name is Ray Dalio. And several months ago, he said he thinks the collapse, an economic financial collapse, will happen at the end of 12 or the beginning of 13. Now, he also thought that we'd have a collapse in 2008, which we did. I also said in 2008, in March, all the banks were in trouble. I've been saying that for months before, that all of the banks were in trouble. This is in March of 2008, and of course, we didn't have the collapse until, October? And so, but he looked at me at CNN like I had two heads, like, what do you mean? Well, as it turns out, they did collapse. Well, my question is, what are they getting ready for? And I think they're getting ready for some sort of collapse. And if they bomb Iran, like Rick Santorum wants to do, like many of the neocons want to do, it's not going to be as simple as people think. Can our Navy defeat the Iranian Navy? Without question. Our Navy is probably the best in the world, bar none. But that doesn't mean that our Navy won't take some big hits. I mean, the Chinese, I'm sure, have sold Iran these missiles that are shipped, carrier-destroying missiles that fly about 3 feet off the water and can take out a carrier at a few hundred miles. And, the Persian Gulf is only a few hundred miles wide at its widest point, maybe 300 or 400 miles long. It's not that big, really. It's not an ocean. It's not like hiding out in the Indian Ocean. And so the other thing is that if we have this warfare with Iran, they're not going to pull up, the USS Iranian, battleship and have a broadside. I mean, we're not going to be doing that. And they don't have aircraft carriers, and they don't have battleships and Aegis missile cruisers. What they do have are guys in speedboats with RPGs and torpedoes and asymmetrical warfare. And how much asymmetrical warfare does it take for people who own ships full of oil to say, I'm not going to take my ship through this 30 miles straight? So even if they don't shut it down completely, and of course, former Secretary Cohen said that they cannot shut down the strait. Well, maybe they can't, but they can sure slow down some oil flow. And what is that? Anywhere from about 30 to 40% of the world's oil a year. And they've been working on this for a while. Hold on just a minute. I'm just going to get rid of that. They've been working on this for a while. They've been practicing.
Yeah, this isn't Iraq, who was under 15 years of sanctioned and had been carpet bombed before that, and an unpopular dictator. The Iranians, up against U.S., British, and Israeli funding, as you know, in the tens of billions, over 50 billion total. U.S. gave them 35 billion, and even U.S. CIA advisors and satellite help. Over 1.5 million Iranians died, 300,000 Iraqis. I mean, the Iranians do have their you-know-what together.
Well, listen, they're going to fight. They've been planning this for a long time. And what I want to say to people is, hey, listen, if it's going to be a something